Welcome back. Now we're going to do the second part of question 10 from paper 4, May 2014, time zone 1. Okay, if you missed the first part and you'd like to see that, just go back and click on that. But now we're going to look at the second part here. All right, so show that the equation f of x is equal to g of x, well, f of x equal to g of x simplifies to this following quadratic over here. All right, nice and simple. So we're going to take the function x, f of x. So we know f of x is this one here. Okay, let's go for a different flavour now. Part 2, for part 2 we'll go green flavour. So we're going to say that this function here is equal to this function here. So we're going let's equate the two. So we're going to say that 2x minus 3 is equal to 1 over x plus 1 plus 2. 1 over x plus 1 plus 2. So this is our g of x function, this is our f of x, and we're going to equate the two, and then we're going to simplify and solve for x. So we're going to make it all equate to 0. All right, so let's get all of our like terms together. Okay, so we'll get all our x's together, get all our constants together, and so forth. All right, so first of all, we have a fraction over here. We want to get rid of that fraction. Now, before we get rid of that, we have this positive 2 over here sitting on its own. So we can get rid of that positive 2 there. Now, so what we're going to do is we're going to take that 2 away. Now, our number one rule of an equation is whatever we do on one side of the equation, we must do on the other, so it's going to be minus 2. So we'll have our 2x, we'll have 2x minus 3 minus 2 minus 5 is equal to 1 over x plus 1. Okay, now we've got our fraction on its own. Let's get rid of this fraction, and the best way to do that, to get rid of any fraction, is to multiply it by the denominator. So if you multiply a fraction by its denominator, that denominator will cancel out. So I'm going to multiply this side here by x plus 1. Number one rule of an equation, what I do on this side, I must do on the other side over here. So I'm going to multiply this side here by x plus 1. Okay, let's just put that brackets there. Now these two will cancel out, so I'll just end up with my 1 on its own. So I'll end up with just the 1 here, because these two will cancel out. And here I can implement our friend FOIL. Now FOIL, or Mr. FOIL as some people say, says that we multiply the first terms, the outside terms, the inside terms, and then finally the last terms. So these are the first two terms here, so x times 2x will be 2x squared, 2 times x times x. Then we've got the outside terms, so it's going to be, okay, x times minus 5, so that'll be not minus 5x. The inside term, that's the I represents, 1 plus 2x will be plus 2x. And our last terms, 1 times minus 5. Here. So 1 times minus 5, it's going to be minus 5. Okay. So we've gone and multiplied that out. All we need to do now is combine our like terms. All right. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to equate the whole thing to 0. So let's make this equal 0. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of that 1. So I'm going to say minus 1. Okay, which means whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other. So I'll say minus 1 over here as well. All right. So that's going to give us, if we combine our like terms, we've got 2x squared, x squared. I've got minus 5x plus 2x, so that's minus 5 plus 2, that would be minus 3x. And then finally, I've got minus 5 minus 1, which would be minus 6. And we've just gone through and shown the whole process of how f of x is equal to f of x equal to g of x simplifies to what we were given initially over here, and that works. All right. Let's have a look at part 6. Now we've been asked to solve this equation here. Okay, so if we've been asked to solve an equation, that means that we've been asked to find out what the unknown or the variable is. So we've been asked to figure out what is x in this particular equation here. Now we have what's called a quadratic equation. Now the reason why I know it's a quadratic equation is because the highest power we have of our variable is 2. We've got this 2x squared here. This tells us that this is a quadratic equation. Now, if I had a 2x cubed to the power of 3, that would be a cubic, all right? Or if I had my highest power was to the power of 1, then I'd have a linear equation, okay? But in this case here, we know it's a quadratic. So what I'm going to do, because I have the coefficient of my x squared is 2, and this doesn't sort of divide out nice and neatly, I'm going to use the tool, the quadratic equation. Now the quadratic equation is very useful, and you should know that by heart, is x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of 4, whoops, I'm lying, that's not 4, okay, sorry, is minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. 4ac. Okay, and all of that over 2 lots of a. So I've got these a, b, and c. Where do I get them from? Well, the a is the coefficient of our x squared term, so that happens to be 2. And b is the coefficient of our x term, which happens to be negative 3. And c is our constant, which is this one here, which is sitting at the back, and that is negative 6. Negative 6. So I'm just going to substitute these values into the quadratic equation here. Now this is the part where you have to be very careful. All right. So we'll say that x is equal to minus b. So our sign, so minus. Now b is minus 3. Okay, so that's minus 3 plus or minus square root of b squared. So b squared is going to be minus 3 squared minus 4 lots of, now I'm going to throw brackets in here, okay, just so we don't get mixed up, 4 lots of 4 times a, which is 2, c, brackets again, which is minus 6. Now the brackets are just really handy so we don't make any mistakes. And all of that's going to be divided by 2 lots of a, which is 2. Okay. Now, if you simplify that out, we'll end up with x is equal to, obviously minus minus is going to be a positive, so it's going to be 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared is going to be 9, positive 9, 9 minus 4 times 2, so it's going to be negative 8, negative 8 times minus 6, okay, 64, so we'll end up with square root of 57, okay, and all of that over 4. All right. Now you can just plug that into your calculator. There's going to be two two sums that you're going to be doing in your calculator. You're going to be doing 3 plus the square root of 57 divided by 4. And you'll be doing 3 minus the square root of 57 divided by 4, meaning that you'll have two answers to this question. So you'll have approximate to 2.64 and negative 1.14. Okay, that's because a quadratic, when we graph it, it is a curve, and it has the potential to cross the x-axis 2 times, and this is what we're figuring out here. We're equating this to 0, and when y is equal to 0, this is what our x values are. Okay, now let's look at our final part here, so part B, and we've been asked to simplify this guy right here. Now, just by looking at it, the first thing that I would probably do here is I would factorise both the top and the bottom. Now, how am I going to do that? Well, let's look at the top part first. Okay, so I'm going to factorise it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find a number that multiplies to 2, okay, multiplies to 2, well, two numbers that multiply to 2, and which also add to give me negative 3. Okay, so I've just thought of two numbers. Okay, two numbers that multiply to negative 2 would be to positive 2 would be 1 and 2. 1 times 2 is 2, and now I'm going to choose what signs I'm going to have here. So what two numbers here will add to negative 3 would be negative 1 and negative 2. If I multiply negative 1 and negative 2, I'm going to get positive 2. If I add negative 1 and negative 2 together, I'm going to get negative 3. So I've successfully factorised the top part of our expression here. All right, now let's do the same thing for the bottom. Okay, we're going to factorise again. So we need to find a number, or two numbers, sorry, that multiply and equal to negative 10. Okay, so right now, to get a negative number, we're going to need a negative and a positive. All right, and when we add them together, we get positive 3. So two numbers that I can think of is going to be 2 and 5. All right, so 2 times 5 will equal to 10, and I think that would be negative 2 times positive 5. Okay, so negative 2 times positive 5 will give us negative 10, but negative 2 plus 5 will give us positive 3. Now this only works when our coefficient of our x squared is 1. Okay, now if I have a look here, I've got, now that I've factorised, I can cancel these, x minus 2, x minus 2. So that leaves us with x minus 1 over x plus 5. So that is successfully simplified. Okay, if you need any more clarification, or there's some other questions that you have, please comment down below, and I'll do my best to answer those questions or to do another work solution for you. Other than that, thanks for watching.